In this video, we're going to be working through the problems of our midterm study guide. The first question asks, which expressions are equivalent to 14x plus 7? Mark all that apply. As we work through this problem, we notice that in A through F, these are all the distributive property. So we should distribute and see if it is equivalent to 14x plus 7. In A, you would distribute negative 7 to positive 2x, giving you negative 14x. You would also distribute negative 7 to negative 1, giving you positive 7. You should notice that this is a negative 14 and not a positive 14. Therefore, it is not our answer. For B, we would distribute 7 to positive 2x, giving us positive 14x, and 7 to positive 1, giving us positive 7. This is 14x plus 7. In C, we are distributing 7x to 2, giving us 14x, and 7x to negative 1, giving us negative 7x. This does not match our expression of 14x plus 7. In D, we're distributing negative 7x to 2x. That gives us negative 14x squared. We should know at this point that this does not match, but if we continue the distribution, negative 7x times negative 1 is positive 7x. In E, negative 7 times negative 2x is positive 14x, and negative 7 times negative 1 is positive 7. That does match the expression we are trying to be equivalent to. In F, 7 times negative 2x is negative 14x, and 7 times positive 1 is positive 7. Because of the negative 14, this is not equivalent. On the next question, we say, Bill opened a savings account with an initial deposit of $200. Which combination will result in a zero balance in Bill's account? If we have an initial deposit of $200, then we start out with positive $200. In A, we make a deposit of $10 on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So that is an overall deposit of $30 in a week, and we do that for 5 weeks. We then have a withdrawal of $25 on Tuesday and Thursday. So that's an overall withdrawal of $50 a week for 5 weeks. If we do the multiplication and the addition and subtraction, we can see whether we end up with a zero balance or not. 30 times 5 gives us 150, and 50 times 5 gives us 250. So we're taking 200 and adding 150 to get 350, and then we are subtracting 250, leaving us with $100. So A would not be our answer. In B, we start out with an initial deposit of $200. We deposit $20 on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So that is a deposit of $60 over the course of a week. We do that every week for 5 weeks. We then have a withdrawal of $25 on Tuesday and Thursday. So in a week, we withdraw $50, and we do that for 5 weeks. So 60 times 5 gives us 300. 50 times 5 gives us $250. 200 plus 300 is $500. And then if we subtract our $250, we would be left with $250, which is not $0. For C, we have an initial deposit of $200. We are going to deposit $10 on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, so that's $30 deposited in a week. And we're going to do that every week for 10 weeks. We're also going to make a withdrawal of $25 on Tuesday and Thursday. So we're withdrawing $50 in the week for 10 weeks. And we need to see what our overall balance will be after 10 weeks. 30 times 10 is $300, and 50 times 10 is $500. So if we take 200 and add 300, we get 500, and then subtract 500 to get a balance of 0. So C will leave us with a 0 balance. Mrs. Smith has 52.34 feet of ribbon for a border around a bulletin board for her classroom. The board is 4.55 feet tall and 5.5 feet wide. How many feet of ribbon will Mrs. Smith have left after she puts the border around the board? If we're talking about the border around a bulletin board, we're talking about perimeter. Two sides will be 5.5 feet, and the other two sides will be 4.55 feet. If we need to figure out what she has used, you will take those four numbers and add them together. So 5.5 plus 5.5 plus 4.55 plus 4.55 means that she has used a total of 20.10 feet. If we want to know what she has left, you would take the original amount of 52.34 and subtract what she has used, leaving you with 32.24 feet left. The table shows the relationship between X, the number of quarters inserted into an arcade game, and Y, the number of minutes of play. We want to know, are the number of quarters and the number of minutes in a proportional relationship? And explain your reasoning. If we're going to have a proportional relationship, then we're going to have a constant of proportionality. And we've said that you check for a constant of proportionality by setting up the ratio of Y over X. That would be equal to K if we have a constant of proportionality. In our first scenario, our Y value is 6 and our X value is 2. In the next, our Y value is 9 and our X value is 3. In our next scenario, our Y value is 15 and our X value is 5. And in the last scenario, our Y value is 24 and our X value is 8. 6 divided by 2 gives us 3. 9 divided by 3 gives us 3. 15 divided by 5 gives us 3. And 24 divided by 8 gives us 3. So we do have a constant of proportionality. Our constant of proportionality is 3. So yes, this is a proportional relationship, stating all ratios reduce to 3 or 3 over 1, or every time you take the number of quarters and multiply it by 3, it will give you the number of minutes. Our next question is a continuation of the last, and it's asking you to plot the points in the table on a coordinate grid and connect them with a line. We then want to know what is the y-intercept of the line. In our table, we're given ordered pairs. You always start by plotting the X value and then the Y value. So our first ordered pair is 2, 6, which is here. Our next ordered pair is 3, 9. Our next ordered pair is 5, 15. And our last ordered pair is 8, 24. In the last question, we identified that we do have a proportional relationship. So we should be able to connect a straight line that comes through the origin. And we can see that we can do that in this scenario. We're then asked to identify what the y-intercept is. And the y-intercept is simply where the line we drew crosses the y-axis. So since this is our y-axis and this is the line we drew, we can see that they connect here at 0. Therefore, our y-intercept is 0, or you can call that the ordered pair 0, 0. What information do you get by drawing a line to connect the points on this graph? Given the context of the problem, is it appropriate to connect the points on the graph with a line and explain? The information you can get by drawing a line to connect the points on this graph is a verification that yes, we are looking at a proportional relationship. Yes, it did make sense to connect the points with a line because we knew from the first step that we were looking at a proportional relationship in which its definition is that we have a straight line through the origin. Our next question states, Jan went to a candy shop. She purchased 5 packs of jelly beans, 4 packs of gummy bears, and 6 packs of mints. The cost of each pack of candy was $1.50. The expression 150 times 5 plus 150 times 4 plus 150 times 6 represents the total amount of money she spent on candy. How can this expression be rewritten? In this question itself, it states the expression represents the total amount of money she spent on candy, and we know that the cost of each pack of candy was $1.50. So if we wanted to get another expression that represents the total, we should add all of the items that we bought, which is 5 plus 4 plus 6, and then multiply it by the cost. We should see that if we simplified both expressions, they come out to be the same number. In the case of B, 5 plus 4 is 9, and 9 plus 6 is 15. So we have 15 items, and each item costs $1.50, making our total $22.50. If we go back to our original problem, $1.50 times 5 is $7.50. $1.50 times 4 is $6, and $1.50 times 6 is $9. If you add all of the money amounts, you do in fact come up with $22.50. We want to know which number is located the same distance on a number line from 7 as -5 is. Because we're told that we're looking at this on a number line, it may be helpful to draw a number line, even if it's just very basic. We should be able to identify from this question that the number we are starting at is 7. If we want a number that is the same distance from 7 as -5 is, we're wanting to know what number on the right side of 7, or the positive side of 7, is located the same distance as our -5. If we wanted to leave 7 and travel to -5, we would have to travel 12 spaces to the left, so that's -12. But because we're referring to distance, that would be the absolute value of 12. So we want to know what number is going to be 12 spaces to the right of 7. So you would take 12 and add it to 7 to get 19. Meaning the number that is the same distance from 7 as -5 is 19. Next, we want to decide whether each expression simplifies to a number less than -1, greater than 1, or neither. We want to write an expression under the appropriate column, and you might not use every expression because remember, some may be neither. For me, I find it helpful to list these out as A, B, C, D, and E. It just makes the sorting easier. And then you want to simplify each expression to see how it compares to -1 and +1. 3 divided by -4 is -0.75. -2 divided by 2 is -1. When you're multiplying fractions, it can be easier if you cross-cancel. In this case, our 3's can cross-cancel, leaving us with a numerator of 8 and a denominator of 5. Because we're multiplying a negative and a negative, that gives us a positive. This number can be turned into the mixed number 1 3/5. In D, we might want to look at this number as 2 over 1 times -7 over 2. It helps to see that you can cross-cancel these 2's, leaving you with -7. And in E, sometimes it's easier to rewrite the division as a fraction. You can see that this is 10 over 6. 6 will go into 10 one time with 4 left over. So this number is really 1 2/3. Now that you're looking at their simplified forms, you could sort them. -0.75 is greater than -1, but it is not greater than 1. So this is neither. -1 is not less than -1, it is -1. So this is neither. 1 3/5 is greater than 1. -7 is less than -1. And 1 2/3 is greater than 1. Our next problem states, Action Wheels manufactures models of antique cars for collectors. In January, it manufactured 280 model cars. In February, Action Wheels manufactured 15% fewer model cars than in January. What is the difference in the number of cars manufactured in January and February? We are told an amount for the manufactured cars in January. We are also told that to get to February's amount of manufactured cars, we would take 15% of January off. So we need to figure out what 15% of January is. January is 280 cars. So you would multiply that by 0.15, representing 15%. And that amount is 42. So you can see that in January we have 280 cars. To get to February, we would take off 42 cars, leaving a February total of 238. At this point, you have to identify what the question asked for, and the question asked for the difference. The difference would be that we have made 42 cars less. Wilda takes her cat to a veterinarian every year for a checkup. Last year, the difference in the cat's weight from the year before was 2.46 pounds. This year, the difference in its weight from last year is negative 0.73 pounds. What is the difference in the cat's weight from 2 years ago? Well, 2 years ago, the cat weighed an amount. And when it went to the vet, it had gained 2.46 pounds. And when it went to the vet again, it had lost 0.73 pounds. So the adjustment in weight overall is 2.46 minus 0.73. Meaning that overall the cat gained 1.73 pounds since 2 years ago. We want to know which statements are true and mark all that apply. So we should read through the statements and see what they say. In statement A, the distance between -7 and 5 on a number line is 12. So if you are traveling from -7 to 5, you would have to move right 7 spaces to get to 0, and then 5 more spaces to get to 5. So yes, you have traveled 12 spaces. This is true. In B, the distance between 8 and 3 on a number line is 11. If you wanted to go from 8 to 3, you would move left 5 spaces, which is not a distance of 11. For C, the distance between -5 and -15, so we want to go from -5 to -15, is 10. We would move 10 spaces to the left to get to -15. Now, because distance is neither positive nor negative, we would state that yes, it is 10 spaces between those two numbers. On D, the distance between -12 and 2 on a number line is 14. So we would leave -12 and travel 12 spaces to the right to get to 0, and then 2 more spaces to get to 2. So we have traveled a total of 14 spaces. So A, C, and D are all true here. Our next question says, when a snowstorm hit the town of Clarksville, there were already 8 inches of snow on the ground. The storm lasted for 2 hours, and by the time it was over, there were 15 inches of snow on the ground. What was the mean number of inches of snow per hour that fell during the storm? By the time that the storm hit, there were already 8 inches of snow on the ground. After the 2 hours, there were 15 inches of snow on the ground. So we had an increase of 7 inches in 2 hours. So if we were talking about the mean number of inches per hour, we would take 7 and divide it by 2, meaning we had an increase of 3.5 inches per hour. The next question states the dimensions of a rectangle are given in terms of x as shown below. We want to write an expression representing the perimeter of a rectangle as the sum of the 4 side lengths. If you were to continue the measurements on this rectangle, you would see that this is also x because these 2 sides are the same, and the right side is also 2x plus 8 because these 2 are the same. So if we're looking for the perimeter to be given as a sum, we want to add the 4 side lengths together. So that might be 2x plus 8 plus x plus 2x plus 8 plus x. This represents all 4 sides being added together. And there can be many variations of this. All perimeter expressions should reduce to the same perimeter, which in this case covers 2 x's on this side, 2 x's on this side, 1x here, and 1x here. So you have a total of 6 x's, and 8 here and 8 here, giving you a total of 16. So any perimeter expression that you have should reduce to 6x plus 16. We want to explain how the expression of 2 times 3x plus 8 also represents the perimeter of the rectangle. The measurements that were given to you were x and 2x plus 8. If you combine these, you get 3x plus 8. So 3x plus 8 represents 2 sides. And if we want the full perimeter, you would multiply that by 2. So 3x plus 8 represents 2 sides. And you multiply by 2. To get the full perimeter. Next we have Javier. He is evaluating the expression negative 8 times 10 plus negative 5 plus negative 8. Multiplying the numbers 10, negative 5, and negative 8 by a certain number, and then adding the 3 products will give Javier the fully simplified evaluated expression. We want to know, what is that number? If we were to simplify the expression as given, you would take negative 10 and add it to negative 5, giving you, 10 plus negative 5, giving you 5. And then you would add that to negative 8, giving you negative 3. So negative 3 times negative 8 will give you positive 24. So we're looking for a number that when multiplied to each of these individual terms will give you positive 24 as your overall answer. You should notice that this represents the distributive property. Negative 8 times 10 will give you negative 80. Negative 8 times negative 5 will give you positive 40. And negative 8 times negative 8 will give you positive 64. So when you have negative 80 plus 40 plus 64, you come up with negative 40 plus 64, which gives you 24. So the number that we multiplied by each one of those was negative 8. Our answer is negative 8. We want to know, how is the difference 13/15 minus 3/12 written as a decimal? Before you can subtract fractions, they need to have a common denominator. The common denominator of 15 and 12 is 60. So you would take your 3/12 and multiply the numerator and denominator by 5. This leaves you with 13/15. You would need to also take your 13/15 and multiply it by 4 to get a denominator of 60, which leaves you with 52/60 minus 15/60. Now you just subtract your numerators, and 52 minus 15 is 37. To take this number and turn it into a decimal, you would divide the numerator by the denominator. So you would say 37 divided by 60. When you carry out that division, you come up with 0.616 with your 6 repeating. The graph below shows the proportional relationship between the number of minutes of programming on a TV station and the number of minutes of commercials. We want to know, what does the point 3010 mean? The point 3010 is right here, in which 30 is your x value and 10 is your y value, meaning that for 30 minutes of programming, there are 10 commercials. 10 minutes of commercials. Next, we're talking about Wilbur. He works in a shoe store and earns a commission for every dollar's worth of shoes he sells. When he sells $50 worth of shoes, he earns $2.50 in commission. We want to know which equation can be used to find the total commission C Wilbur will earn if the cost S of the shoes he sells is known. The cost is going to be S, and the commission will be C. Commission is earned by a percentage of sales. So a percent of sales is how we're going to figure out our commission. If we know that the commission is $2.50 and the sales are $50, we can work backwards to figure out what the percent of commission is. And the way that we would undo the multiplication on the right side, or make that 50 disappear, is to divide 50 on both sides. That would leave us with x alone. $2.50 divided by $50 would leave us with 0.05. Meaning we are going to make 5% of sales. But because we do not see 0.05, we need to turn that into a fraction. 0.05 is 5/100ths, which reduces to 1/20th. So the equation we would create is that the commission is 1/20th of sales, which is C. Next, we have a graph that shows a proportional relationship between the cup of milk and the cups of strawberry juice a recipe calls for homemade strawberry milk. We want to know, what is the meaning of the point 6,3. We can identify that point on the graph, in which 6 is our x value and 3 is our y value. Our x value represents milk, and our y value represents strawberry juice. We identify that information from the labels of the graph. X is our cups of milk, and Y is our cups of strawberry juice. So we're looking for a statement that says that we have 6 cups of milk with 3 cups of strawberry juice. And in B, we say that we have 6 cups of milk and 3 cups of strawberry juice. So B would be our correct answer. Our next problem talks about the low temperatures on New Year's Day in a city for 5 years, being 2 degrees Fahrenheit, 10 degrees Fahrenheit, 7 degrees Fahrenheit, 4 degrees Fahrenheit, and negative 13 degrees Fahrenheit. We want to know, what was the average low temperature on New Year's Day for the 5 years? If we're talking about an average, you are adding up all of the totals and dividing by the total number of amounts, which in this case is 5. So we would be adding 2 plus 10 to get 12, and 12 plus 7 to get 19, and 19 plus 4 to get 23, and 23 plus negative 13 to get 10. So the total sum is 10, and you would then divide that number by the total amount of numbers, which is 5. So 10 divided by 5 is 2, meaning the average low temperature on New Year's Day for the last 5 years was 2 degrees Fahrenheit. A proportional relationship is represented by the equation 5x equals 25y. If y equals kx, where k is the constant of proportionality, we want to know what is the value of k. If you notice in the format y equals kx, we have an equation that is similar, and we can just rearrange the items where we have our y on the left and our x on the right. We cannot simply say that k is 5 because our y value is not alone. If we wanted to solve for y and split apart the multiplication between 25 and y, we would divide by 25 on both sides, leaving this with only one y, and over here we would have 5 over 25x. But 5/25 will reduce because both numbers are divisible by 5, and that would leave us with 1/5. We can now identify that this is our k value, or our constant of proportionality, so C would be our constant of proportionality. Next, we have a landscaper raising the price she charges to mow a lawn by 40%. She used to charge $25 to mow a lawn. What is her new rate? She used to charge $25, and now she is going to increase her price by 40% of $25. Or you could think of this as, instead of paying $25, we are now going to pay 140% of $25. Either is fine to get you the answer, and if worked correctly, will give you the same number. In the first one, 40% of $25 is $10, so we are adding that to our original to give us a new total of $35. In the second, we would be multiplying 25 times 1.4, which would take us directly to $35 as our answer. Frida purchased 5 equally priced DVDs online. She paid $90. We want to know she paid $90, which included shipping. We want to know which statements are true about this situation. You can take the scenarios that are given in the answer choices and kind of create a statement that says what's happening. We are buying 5 DVDs. And we are also paying shipping. We are only going to spend $90. And we want to know which of these is going to equal true statements. Each DVD has a cost. So 5 times the cost of the DVD plus the shipping amount should equal $90 if we have a true statement. So in A, we're saying 5 times 16 plus $10 in shipping should equal $90. And 5 times 16 gives us 80, and 80 plus 10 gives us 90. So A is a true statement. In B, we are buying 5 DVDs. We are stating that the cost of each DVD would be $14.60, and we would be paying $18 in shipping. If that's a true statement, then that would equal $90. If we continue that process, we would see that 5 times $14.60 is $73, plus $18 of shipping would give us a total spent of $91, which is not 90, so B is not correct. In C, we would take 5 and multiply it by 1570, and we would then add the shipping of $12 to see if that is equal to 90. And 5 times 1570 is $78.50. If you add that to 12, you get $90.50, which is 50 cents more than $90, so it is not true. In D, if we had 5 times $16.14, and we add that to a shipping fee of $9.30, we want to know, does that equal 90? And 5 times 1614 is $80.70, and if you add that to $9.30, you do come up with $90. So A and D are both true in this case. Richard mows 1/5 of his yard in 1/3 of an hour. At that same rate, how much of a yard would Richard mow in 1 hour? You can set up a proportion for this relationship, stating that 1/5 of his yard over 1/3 hour would be how much of his yard in 1 hour. You can see that to get from 1/3 to 1, you would divide by 1/3. So you would do the same to the numerator. 1/5 divided by 1/3 is the same thing as 1/5 times 3/1, because when you divide fractions, you multiply by the reciprocal. Your ones would cross cancel, leaving you with 3/5. So we could mow 3/5 of the yard.